bet on one game. Raising the odds and elevating your experience.
It's the return of the competitive Europa League. The finest teams and the best players of Europe facing off. Arsenal, AC Milan, Tottenham. Starting on the 22nd of October for only 125 kwacha DTT or 130 kwacha DTH. Watch all the best of Europa League matches live only on Topstar. Catch the Gunners, Arsenal, as they play away to Rapid Vienna on Thursday, 22nd of October at 18:55 hours on Wild Football. Then refresh yourself and watch Celtic as they host the Italian Giants on 22nd of October at 21 hours on Sports Focus. Wrap up match day 1 by watching Tottenham as they host Lask also on Thursday, 22nd of October at 21 hours on Wild Football. Subscribe now and enjoy an exciting kick-off to Europa Fiesta this season. Topstar. Enjoy digital life.
For the most accurate and balanced news, we are a credible and trusted news source. We are KBN Television. Catch us live on Topstar Channel 102. And remember to like our page KBN TV on Facebook for all breaking news. KBN, the finest television.
Good evening and thank you so much for joining us on the finest television, KBN TV, which is currently showing in most towns in Zambia. The headlines: Chishimba Kambwili's bail application adjourned. Government says children should not be shunned in the COVID-19 response planning. The Democratic Party says failed leadership has made Zambia a laughingstock. In foreign news, a 24-hour curfew imposed on Lagos State amid anti-police anger. And in sports news, talks take place over new £4.6 billion European Premier League tournament. With the details of the news, my name is Betty Chanda. National Democratic Congress Party President Chishimba Kambwili's bail application hearing has been adjourned to Thursday. Principal Resident Magistrate David Simusamba told the court that the application for bail was made by the legal team before he could finish his judgment, hence reserving his ruling on Thursday this week to see whether the application is competent before him. Kambwili was sentenced to 1 year imprisonment last week after being found guilty of forgery and uttering a false document. He is being represented by Keith Mwemba, Gilbert Piri, Christopher Mundia and Eddie Mwetwa. Earlier, drama characterized the magistrate court's premises when Chishimba Kambwili's wife, Carol Kambwili, and daughter Chanda were taken to Kabwata police. This was after a dispute ensued between them and officers who were at the magistrate court. And Opposition United Party for National Development leader Hakainde Hichilema has described the arrest of Chishimba Kambwili's wife as a demonstration of lack of the rule of law. Mr. Hichilema has alleged that the Patriotic Front cadres are the ones wearing police uniforms, which is unprofessional. Speaking at the Lusaka Magistrate Complex, where Dr. Kambwili was appearing for his bail pending appeal, Mr. Hichilema expressed disappointment with the police and asked Inspector General to clean up the service. Mr. Hichilema says it is unfortunate that the dictatorial tendencies are being extended to the court areas which are supposed to be free for any citizen.
This is yet another demonstration of the absence of the rule of law. No respect for the laws that apply around court issues. no respect for human rights, because it's a right for us to be here. It's her right to be here. This is unacceptable. She must be released forthwith. The police should be ashamed of taking her into cells. Remember, imagine the trauma that she's going through. The husband is already in prison. Where is the human face of this leadership here? It was never there. It lied, the PF lied that there were people's government. They never were. They lied. And that's, you know, the English say the test of the...
The Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council has condemned what it terms as unprofessional and brutal behavior by the Zambia police against Dr. Chishimba Kambwili's wife and daughter at the Magistrate Court today. NGOCC Executive Director Ingwase Mwale says to undress a woman in the manner the police did to Mrs. Kambwili is not only an assault on her dignity, but a collective assault on all Zambian women. Mwale says the brutality and heavy-handedness by the overzealous police officers against the defenseless and unarmed woman is totally unacceptable. She adds that the video that has gone viral, the behavior of the police is devoid of any civility and professionalism expected of the police service. She has since demanded an apology from the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kakoma Kanganja, and the immediate prosecution of the officers that behaved in a barbaric manner as captured in the videos which are circulating on online platforms.
To torture and dehumanize Mrs. Kambwili and the daughter in that manner is indeed criminal. Clearly, from the video that has gone viral, the behavior of the police is devoid of any civility and professionalism that is expected of the police service. We therefore demand an apology from the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kakoma Kanganja, and the immediate prosecution of the officers that behaved in a barbaric manner as captured in the videos which are circulating on online platforms. The conduct of the officers is far short of the state principles of public service and specifically the police code of conduct. It is NGOCC's expectation that the police must act according to their call of service in providing law and order, and they must resolve to maintain civility when dealing with citizens.
Government has called for deliberate efforts to empower women because of the economic shocks caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Health Minister Dr. Chitalu Chilufya says women in the informal sector have been mostly affected, hence the need for an initiative for economic recovery for them. Dr. Chilufya has encouraged private sectors to come on board with the economic recoveries for the people affected by the pandemic. Dr. Chilufya was speaking in a speech read on his behalf by Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary in charge of administration, Akakulubelwa Mulalelo. This was during the Standard Chartered Bank UNPD COVID-19 response donation in Lusaka today. He has since reiterated government support to the women and youths that have been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Across the globe, women and girls are more vulnerable to economic shocks brought by crises such as the coronavirus pandemic. Zambia is no exception. In every sphere of life, from health to the economy, the impacts of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls simply by virtue of their sex. This therefore calls for deliberate efforts to empower women, as their economic status also has a significant impact on their physical health. It is therefore gratifying to note that having recognized the negative socio-economic impact that COVID-19 has wrought on Zambia's informal sector, especially on women's entrepreneurs, UNDP, with support from Standard Chartered Bank, has embarked on an initiative that...
At the same event, Standard Chartered Bank donated $50,000 to the United Nations Development Program to empower women produce reusable face masks. And bank's head of global banking, Amy Kumwenda, says the donation is an effort to empower entrepreneurs that have been affected by the pandemic, especially women.
As a bank, we are donating $50,000 as one way to help the country tackle one of the key preventative measures for COVID-19, wearing the face mask. This will not only help to fight this pandemic, but it will also empower local Zambian female entrepreneurs in particular, who have not been spared by the pandemic. In addition, we at Standard Chartered Bank place very strong emphasis on empowering women. We are delighted that women entrepreneurs will be prioritized for the face mask production.
Democratic Party leader Harry Kalaba says Zambia is a laughingstock at 56 due to poor leadership. Speaking ahead of National Independence Day, which falls on 24th October, the opposition leader told KBN News in an interview that Zambia is supposed to be a pillar to sister countries. He has bemoaned the country's political space is shrinking at the hands of the PF government. Mr. Kalaba has, however, employed people to love one another. He has stressed the need for citizens to focus on what unites the country.
56 Zambia should be concentrating more on what is bringing us together rather than what is dividing us. At 56, Zambia should realize that we have helped many other countries across the SADC region who should now be looking at us as an example. At 56, we should play the role of an elder brother, an elder sister to other sister nations that who have always been looking up to us. But now everybody's now laughing at us in this country. At 56, we're a laughingstock. And that is sad. The political space is shrinking every day. At 56, we should have been like Ghana, who allow opposition parties to even be on their national broadcaster. At 56, we should be emulating countries like Botswana, countries like South Africa. But Zambia, because of the poor leadership that we have in this country, at 56, we are dwarfed. At 56, it's like we are 6 years old, and yet we are 56 years old. So my wish for...
You're watching the main news at 1930 on the finest television KBN, which is currently showing in most towns in Zambia. We take a break, don't go away.
Because you pay attention, because you know more than one angle, and see more than one opportunity. We bring you Build a Bet. Multiple legs as a single bet on one game. Raising the odds and elevating your experience.
Welcome back and thank you for still staying with us. We continue with the main news. Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary for Technical Services, Kennedy Malama, has called for the need to ensure that children are not left out in the COVID-19 response planning. Dr. Malama says this is because children are more vulnerable to contracting and spreading the coronavirus. He says children should therefore be excused from congregate settings to reduce contact with other people. He has, however, reiterated government's position to ensure the safety of children in schools. Meanwhile, Dr. Malama has announced that the country has recorded 85 new cases of COVID-19 out of 2,050 tests conducted in the last 24 hours.
It's therefore important to notice that although the number of COVID-19 cases in children below the age of 6 years has been relatively low in our country and also globally when you compare, they remain vulnerable to themselves and also in transmitting the infection to others. Therefore, in our planning and in our response, we need to ensure that young people, children below the age of 16, are not left out in our response to protect their lives and those closer to them. Ministry of Health continues working with school managers at various levels to ensure the safety of our young people, our young children. Since we've guided to exclude masking for this very, very young age group, we continue emphasizing.
Meanwhile, government has unveiled an innovation that will enable COVID-19 results to be released in 15 minutes. Professor Mlenga says the testing kit works like one for malaria, but the use is, however, restricted to patients admitted in hospitals.
Now this looks for the component of the virus. It's called a rapid antigen test. And the way it's done from the same swab which we insert in the nose. When we get that sample, like this is the swab. So we get this swab and insert in the nose. Once we get in the nose, then we put it in some media just on the desk, and we are able now to get fluid from that media or buffer, and also we place it on this, just like the usual malaria test, the HIV test which we do. And within 15 minutes, we are able to tell if someone has COVID. When there are two lines, and we show that someone has COVID. When it's one line, then someone has not COVID. However, the use of this should be limited. In our setting, we're encouraging it to be used in hospitals and also in those who are contacts with positive.
Still in local news, the Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes is delighted over the progress made by the African Union on the newly created Peace Fund, which seeks to raise continental resources to address matters of peace and security on the continent. SACOD Executive Director Boniface Chembe has since applauded AU member state countries for having contributed $170 million out of $450 million towards the Peace Fund despite challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Chembe says the move taken by the AU is an appropriate one because the African continent has been plagued by decades of conflicts and civil strife. He has, however, urged member state countries not to relent with their efforts to fight for greater peace and security on the continent by ensuring that the total invasion pledged is finalized. He adds that Africa's peace is dependent upon African leaders, and proactive initiatives of such nature gives hope to the masses that leaders care about peace on the continent, which is cardinal for development and prosperity.
SACOD is elated with the news of the progress made by the African Union on the newly created Peace Fund, which seeks to raise continental resources to address matters of peace and security on the continent. The news shared following the sitting of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the AU, held on 13th and 14th October 2020 and led by Ministers of Foreign Affairs to consider, among others, the report of the joint sitting of the Ministerial Committee on scale of assessment for the newly established Peace Fund shows seriousness to peace commitment by the supranational body and its leaders. The African continent has been plagued by decades of conflicts and civil strife, and it is only appropriate that the AU takes a proactive role of establishing it.
The new Congress Party President Peter Chanda says aspiring candidates planning to contest next year's presidential elections will be doing an academic exercise because President Lungu is likely to win. Party President Pastor Peter Chanda says President Lungu has performed well in his leadership. Pastor Peter Chanda says his party has decided not to contest the 2021 elections because he believes the people still appreciate the works of President Lungu. Peter Chanda says he's happy that President Lungu has made a firm stance that is not scared of any political party. He has since advised the newly formed political parties not to exhibit politics of rhetoric.
I'm happy with the fact that His Excellency the President has made a firm stance that is not scared of any other political party. And I can attest to the fact that President Lungu has performed extremely well in his leadership. And for us that understand the time, we have decided not to contest the 2021 election because we believe the Zambian people are still in love with President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and they appreciate his leadership. Timely advice to all the political contenders that are standing in 2021 that they should know that President Lungu is still the man of the moment, and come 2021, together with us as alliance partners, we are going to give all political parties, they can form themselves in whichever number, but for us we understand the covenant. This time is favoring President Lungu, and for those that will be standing.
The Patriots for Economic Progress PAPE has urged UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema to tell the Zambian people if his party has been turned into an armed rebel group that is no longer subject to the laws of the land. And PEP President Sean Tembo is dismayed with statement attributed to Mr. Hichilema, which alleges that he will not comply with what he termed as stupid call by the Inspector General of Police to answer questions of alleged kidnapping of 2 officers in Muchinga. Mr. Tembo says the UPND leader's reference to the Inspector General of Police as stupid is inappropriate and must be withdrawn. He says the alleged offense of kidnapping and disarming a police officer is a serious one, adding that Mr. Hichilema should do all his things necessary to ensure that the perpetrators alleged to be UPND are brought to book. The PEP leader adds that it would be prudent for Mr. Hichilema to comply with a request by the Inspector General of Police for him to be interviewed in relation with the alleged serious crime.
As Patriots for Economic Progress, we find extremely regrettable the statement that was attributed to the UPND party president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, in today's edition of Newsdigger's newspaper, in which he referred to the Inspector General of Police as being stupid simply because he was requested to report himself for interviews in relation to the kidnapping of a police officer that is alleged to have taken place in Muchinga province a few days ago. We believe that as the citizens of this republic and as political players, we shall always have disagreements with the police. We shall always have points where we don't agree with their conduct. But in the midst of any such conflict, we need to ensure that we maintain respect for one another so that we can preserve the peace and security in this country.
In foreign news, the governor of Nigeria's commercial hub, Lagos, has announced an indefinite 24-hour curfew in the state, saying that protests against police brutality have degenerated into violence. Babajide Sanwo-Olu said that criminals had hijacked the demonstrations to unleash mayhem on the state. Lagos has seen some of the largest of the recent wave of protests in Nigeria, spearheaded by young people. They began with a call for the disbandment of a notorious police unit. President Muhammadu Buhari dissolved the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, accused of illegal intentions, assaults and shootings on 11 October. But the demonstrators have called for wider reforms in the security forces as well as changes in the way the country is run. In a series of tweets, Mr. Sanwo-Olu said that he had watched with shock how what began as a peaceful end SARS protest has degenerated into a monster that is threatening the well-being of the society. Finally, in sports news, talks have taken place over the creation of a new £4.6 billion European Premier League involving the top sides from across the continent. Sources told the BBC that discussions are still on an early stage, but the plan would involve replacing the Champions League with a new format. Industry insiders confirmed talks involved Wall Street bank JP Morgan. Reports suggest 5 Premier League clubs, including champions Liverpool and Manchester United, have been approached by those behind the plan, with more than a dozen teams from England, France, Germany, Italy and Spain in negotiations about becoming founder members of the competition. It has also been reported that the European Premier League would see 18 sides compete in a single league, with the top sides taking part in a play-off to determine an overall winner, and the world governing body FIFA is involved. And that sports item brings us to the end of the main news. But before we go, we'll recap on the headlines once again. Chishimba Kambwili's bail application adjourned. Government says children should not be shunned in the COVID-19 response planning. The Democratic Party says failed leadership has made Zambia a laughingstock. 24-hour curfew imposed on Lagos State amid anti-police anger. Talks take place over new £4.6 billion European Premier League tournament. From me, Apeti Chanda, it's good night and God bless you.
and balanced news. We are a credible and trusted news source. We are KBN Television. Catch us live on Topstar Channel 102. And remember to like our page KBN TV on Facebook for all breaking news. KBN, the finest television. For the most accurate and balanced